President Gee, I am so pleased to welcome you today to the Ingenious You community.
Well, I'm delighted to be here and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And
Well,
it's wonderful to meet you.
well, likewise, and I've been so looking forward to this conversation. Through your distinguished career in higher ed, you've been at the helm of some of the nation's leading universities. And looking back over the course of your 7 presidential terms, where do you believe you've had the greatest impact and why?
I, Gosh, that's a great question. I think that probably, and I love the word impact because I think in the end, impact is what as a university president, I think what we should all be about. It's not about managing. It's not about a number of other things. It's about is the work you're doing making a difference in the lives of the people you're serving. First of all, I will say that I think that my own world is calibrated by the fact that I've been a private university president for 2 institutions, Brown and Vanderbilt, and then public university president. But two of those, Ohio State and West Virginia University, are land grant institutions. I think that the real impact that I like to talk about is the fact that I have been perhaps the fiercest advocate for the reimagining and redevelopment of the land grant mission, and which is community building, which is making certain that the people that are served are being served very well, making certain that you're the people's university, making certain that you connect with the university is connected in a very positive way rather than an arrogant or an isolated way with the people of your communities. I think that I have been, I've written along with my friend Steve Gavazzi, we've written the primary book on the future of the land grant university. So I would say land grantness is something that I take a lot of pride in terms of impact.
Well, and boy, isn't that important? It's always been important, but today more than ever, as the value of higher ed is being called into question, I think that kind of impact and voice for land grant institutions is just absolutely critical. Yeah. So as you look back, do you have any regrets or things that you would have done differently?
Oh my gosh, what a question! I tell you something. I tell everyone, and I actually talk a lot about this, and that is the fact that I think everyone can celebrate their successes, but they're very fleeting. The things that, for me at least, have been the most empowering have been from the mistakes I've made. And in fact, I think that I think for me at least, having enough common sense and maybe enough intelligence, if nothing else, to be able to understand that mistakes are an important component of leading has been very important to me. So I I mean, I don't want to get into Gordon Gee's top 10 mistakes that I've made, but yeah, I think that there are a number of things that I would say that I regret, if that's the right word. I think that maybe I left Ohio State too early, and I loved my time at Brown, but I was there for a very short period of time. Maybe moving into the private sector, fit is an important thing, and I moved from 65,000 students to 6,500 students, so I felt like an antelope in a telephone booth, and I think that they felt like I was an antelope in a telephone booth also, and I think that some of the gaffes that I have had, I'm a very outspoken guy. My sense of humor sometimes outpaces my ability to be able to say what I'm saying, and I think all of those things. I think all of those things you look back on and you say, "Gee, I could have done something differently." But overall, I just think the opportunity to constantly reinvent yourself and constantly rethink about who you are and not being stuck in I am right, everyone else is wrong, and not being not being willing to say you're sorry. And I think that I think that one of the things that I take most pride in is the fact that I'm never afraid to say I just made a mistake.
Mm. Well, and that tees up beautifully my next question about your leadership philosophy and approach, and how that has evolved since your very first presidency, which was 40 some years ago, right?
It's 44 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So and my philosophy has changed a lot, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that higher education has changed. I mean, I became a president in the salad days of higher education. There was lots of money. There was not a lot of tension. There was not a lot of issues regarding political divisions in the nation. It was kind of a very passive time in many ways to be a university president, and so that was kind of my initial view. And I was I was very young, so I was just trying to learn kind of the nuances of a university. And West Virginia University, even then, when my first time around, was a very complex institution because it was both a land grant university, a research university, and had an academic medical center. And I'm a lawyer by training, and so so I came out of a very narrow field. So I think that my philosophy has changed. But I think the one thing that hasn't changed is the notion, and I mentioned this earlier, is the notion that there is not a playbook for a university presidency. In other words, one has to reinvent and recalibrate oneself as you move from institution to institution. West Virginia is different from Colorado, is different from Ohio State or Brown or Vanderbilt, and they're all different from each other. And so what I had to do, and interestingly enough, because I've been president of two institutions, West Virginia and Ohio State twice, I had to kind of de-learn the institution when I came back the second time, because I can't say, well, I'll just pick up and continue the way that it was, because both those institutions were dramatically different, particularly 40 years separating me at West Virginia and 10 years at Ohio State, different institutions. So I had to really think carefully about what that institution was doing at that time. And so my philosophy always is to be very cognizant of the institution that I serve, and make certain that I'm not trying to develop some playbook that can move from place to place. The second thing is also making sure that you connect with the communities you're serving. I think so many university presidents come in and get very isolated and very quickly. I've always believed that you need to turn the ivory tower into the helping hand, and that means that you have to get out and work and develop an understanding of the communities you're serving. One of the things that I do here, one of the things I've done almost everywhere, is the fact that I have a goal to be in every county. In this instance, in West Virginia, there are 55 counties, to be in all 55 counties every year to connect with folks. The first time you see a university president, particularly some guy who wears a bow tie, they're kind of curious. The second time they say, well, he's here. If you come back 5, 6, 8 times, all of a sudden they believe that you are genuine about what you're doing. And I think the genuineness is the most important component of a philosophical approach to being a leader.
Mm. Are there a few things that you always look for when you talk about getting to know the university, getting to know the campus, and in particular, coming back to a place where you had served previously? Are there just a few things that you always look deeper for as you're trying to get to know and understand what's happening on that
Yeah,
campus?
I tend to believe that it's important to build a team and to build a culture. I think that is critical. I think also when you're moving to an institution, it's important to have at least one person who is a horse whisperer, who is a Gordon whisperer in this instance, who can tell you this is what the people in this institution are thinking. This is what the people in the state are thinking. I think sometimes university presidents, as I've observed them, make mistakes by bringing in by not having someone or a few people who really do fundamentally understand the institution. At the same time, I believe it's important for you to build your own team. I have a pretty clear philosophy that I want to, because it's a marriage. I want to make certain that I have that I have the right provost. I think that that is absolutely critical. For me, it's always important to have a very strong CFO because I hate budgeting, and I have to have someone who can tell me and direct me in the right way. So so I think that building those strengths are also important.
I don't know if you remember Andrew Shue. He's the current
I
president of.
remember. Yeah, I remember Andrew very well. In fact, I spoke at his inauguration. Andrew was one of my 30 ACE fellows, as a
Yes.
matter of fact, one of the best, as a matter of fact.
Well, I interviewed him a month or so ago, and he cited what he learned from you in terms of this very thing, how to get to know the college campus, the university campus, what to look for. And he said, among the many things he learned from you, that was one of the things that has really has really stuck with him. So I wanted to be sure to.
Well, that's a great compliment. Andrew is a wonderful person, and is also a wonderful leader, and
Yeah.
has done great things at the College of Charleston.
Yeah, indeed. But, to your impact, he's one of many you have touched and helped along the way in terms of leadership journey. So one of the videos that
I
I.
joke.
Oh, go
I'm sorry to
ahead.
interrupt you, but I joke about the fact that I've been doing this for so long that half the people in higher education have worked for me at some time or other, or I've worked with them. That's not far from the truth, actually. It's as you well know, because you've been in academic life a long time. That it's a very small community in many ways. There are only 4,500 universities and colleges in this country, so that's 4,500 university or college presidents, so that's you can fit that almost in the telephone booth.
Yes, indeed. So, one of the videos I watched of you online that was very interesting, you were talking about your Clifton strengths and
Mm-hmm.
how you lead with your strengths. And we use the Clifton strengths in our doctoral program at Bay Path in helping to develop our students as leaders. I know our students would be interested in knowing what your top strengths are and how you, in fact, lead with them. And I believe woo is one of your strengths, if I
Yes,
remember.
Will is one of my strengths, probably. Although I think it's number five, I think it's actually number one. I'm as I say, my daughter used to always joke about the fact that my idea of a quiet evening at home was having 400 people over for dinner. Um, I love people. I love being in the public square. I love engaging. One of the things I'm one of the few university presidents that actually enjoys hand-to-hand combat with the legislature. I enjoy going and being part of that. So I think that what I've learned from the Clifton strengths is the fact that they really nail you. I don't know if you I'm certain you've
I have.
taken the strengths, and you read it and you think, these people have known me my whole life. How did they figure out who I am? Because it really does come back very in mind, curiosity, intellectual
Right.
activity. I mean, those are pretty well connectivity. But I think that the Clifton Strengths program, we have an effort here that we call the Purpose Center, which is really built on Clifton Strengths about people finding their purpose, our faculty, our staff, our students, our parents, a way to kind of organically develop a much more cohesive community. And we're very aligned with the Gallup organization. In fact, I'm going to be speaking at the Gallup organization at their annual meeting, talking about how we use strength. So I think it's a compelling issue for us as an institution, particularly because of the fact that we have such a diverse community.
Yes, for sure. Now, you've been credited with transformative leadership repeatedly in the roles that you've held. So can you discuss or describe a particular transformation that you led that you believe could perhaps serve as a model for other
Well,
institutions?
yeah, well, I've been through this a lot. I'm a disruptive person. I always believe that you need to be pushing the envelope because and then why do I believe that? Because I believe that universities should lead rather than follow.
Mm.
If we're a play, we don't produce widgets, we don't produce cars, we produce ideas and people. And if that is our calling, we ought to be on the front end of every idea and the front end of every way of developing young people and not so young people. And so that's the reason I've always felt that it's important, and that, by the way, makes me a contrarian because, as you know, in our world of higher education, um, the number one question I get all the time is Mr. President, um, and I'll ask a question, say, why are we doing this? And they'll say, well, that's the way we've always done things at West Virginia or Ohio State or whatever. I mean, in other words, there's a high level of comfort in doing things the same way. And change in higher education is an oxymoron. It just is not something that really does trip off people's lips. And I think that the days of comfort have been over for a long time. I think that the transformation process that I've been through right now at West Virginia University, I mean, we had our overall budget with our academic medical center is well over $7 billion, but we had a $45 million budget, structural budget deficit coming out of COVID. And I know a lot of my colleagues around the country are wrestling with it, but most of them will do it quietly. You can always find money to squirrel away here or move there. My view was that I was going to use the budget deficit for two purposes. One, I want to get rid of it. I don't want to be, I'm retiring in a year and a half, and I don't want to leave any kind of a deficit for the next president, even though this is a large institution. The second thing, though, is I want to use it as a catalyst for the fact that we really do need to transform ourselves as a university. And I think that almost all universities and colleges need to transform themselves. They need to determine a couple of things. One, how do you get better? How do you improve quality, and how do you decrease costs?
Mm.
That is something we never ask in higher education. The second thing is, how do we learn to say no? How do we also use facts to determine what we're doing? I mean, I think we do a lot of academic feather bedding. We have people creating courses in order to make certain that they have something to teach, rather than making certain that students are getting served in the right way. So we went through this bruising process. I mean, it was I outlined to our board when I said, when we determined we were going to do this that I said, we're going to march through hell. Not we're going to go into hell. We're going to march through hell because we are challenging every aspect of the way the academic community thinks. That we will eliminate programs. That we will eliminate faculty, staff. That we'll do a variety of other things. But for the economic and social and cultural health of our institution, I felt it was important. It was highly unpopular, but in the end, I think it has been recognized as really a very valuable thing to have done, because I think we're a much stronger institution. I'll give you the best example of that. We had a day of giving 2 days ago, and on that day of giving, we raised $30.25 million.
Mm.
And that was because people are now starting to vote with their feet and their dollars in support of the university, saying, yes, if you'll make the tough decisions, we'll give you the support to do that. And I think that is so incredibly important. So we have, transformation is important. And now it's big transformation.
Right.
Because think about this. The world is one of great speed now. And the days of waking up in the morning and feeling very comfortable that the day is going to be the same is just not is no longer available to us. I point out that the day that we announced that we were going to eliminate a certain number of faculty, about 148 or so, on that same day, Amazon announced they were going to let 18,000 people go. And they notified them in the morning at Amazon, and they were gone by the afternoon.
Mm.
We notify someone, and then we go through all this process and a variety of other things. We live in a very protected life, and we can no longer say to our faculty and to our staff that anything is a lifetime equation. We have to make certain that the institution is working in order to make certain that our faculty and our staff have a sense of purpose and security. And that has not been something that we do very well in universities.
Well, you answered my question. I wanted to ask you about the end game for the decisions that you had rolled out there at Western Virginia, and you've answered that beautifully. There was an article about you in Forbes, a Forbes article not too long ago, that talks about your capacity to do hard things. I'm paraphrasing. And so I'm curious because unlike others facing similar challenges, you've not backed down and you've not taken the easy way out. So where does your capacity for doing hard things come from?
Wow.
And I mean, have you always had that capacity, or is it something you've
No,
developed along the way?
I think that, well, first of all, I developed along the way. I think that I would not have done many of the things that I do now at age 36. I can tell you that. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't be smart enough to know how to do it, and second of all, I probably wouldn't have been courageous enough to do it. I think that I tell everyone that the three, and I actually believe this. To put a finer point on it, I believe that the three elements for success of a university president right now are three things. One, you've got to have a very thick skin. Hmm. If you cannot take the heat, if you cannot take the criticism, then you're not going to survive. Stop reading all the social media posts, because what happens is someone at 2:00 in the morning in their pajamas, they've had one too many something or others to drink, and they start saying really awful things about you or about what you're doing. So just have a thick skin. Secondly of all, it's absolutely critical that you have a good sense of humor. Laugh at yourself. Laugh at the stupid things that you do. Laugh at the stupid things other people sometimes do, and don't make fun of anyone. But just get a good sense of humor about all of this. I mean, it's a journey, and the final thing is what I call nerves like sewer pipes. I could go in a long explanation, but by that I really mean that when you make a decision, stick with it. If you made a mistake, then change your mind. But don't listen to the polls. Don't look at the posts or write of other things. And the reason for that is the fact that, interestingly enough, as a university president, you have more information than anyone else. They can say what a stupid thing you're doing, but they only have one part of the elephant. They don't have the whole ability to be able to. And I've always believed this, and I think that this is not arrogance. Maybe it's a little self-confident. But I've always believed that if people had the same amount of information that I had, they would make the same decisions. Mm-hmm. So I think that is important. I also think that there are a couple of other things that are very important in this thing. One is the relationships. Building personal relationships. You can't survive if you're isolated and arrogant. You can't survive if you're a cold fish, so to speak. You got to embrace people. Tonight, it's Friday night. I'm going to go out at 10:00 with a group of students and go visit parties and activities. And so be warm, be genuinely warm, be embracing. The second thing is it's very important to have great partnerships. So we went through this process, and you'll take a look at a number of people who are going through it. We three things were absolutely critical for us to have gone through the transformation that we've been going through, and that we'll continue to go through for a long time, because I think transformation is the new word for higher education. First of all, we had to have a board that supported us.
Mm.
If the board gets divided, if they get at each other, then you're not going to be able to do anything, and furthermore, you're going to be fighting a two-front war. The second thing is that you have to have a team that believes in what they are doing, and that they talk with each other and stick with each other and supportive of each other, because in many ways, if you do massive transformation like we did, those are going to be your only friends. So you need to have a confident team. And then the third thing is you need to make certain that the political forces don't come after you, i.e. the legislature, the governor, or others. You take a look at what's happening in Arizona, what's happening in a number of other places where the politicians get into the middle of it and start throwing bombs and having things happen. And so we had to work very hard to make sure that all three of those things happen. But with the legislature and with the governor's office, you had to develop all those kind of personal relationships. Remember, I came back to that before. You had to build those personal relationships so that when you did it, that they knew that you were doing what you felt was good, and that you would what that you had translated that to your legislative friends.
Mm. Boy, wise counsel. So as you look at all the changes that are happening on the higher ed landscape, which ones do you think are the most pivotal as you think to the future?
Yeah, I would tell you what I think. I think that this is an existential moment for higher education, um, and 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 I say that for a very simple reason. I'll talk about Gallup again. When I became a university president in 1980, 95% by the Gallup poll showed that 95% of the American public felt that higher education was a positive, was a good, was something that people should aspire to. The latest Gallup poll, about 3 months or so ago, it was down to 36% and going south. What has happened over this period of time is the American university has disassociated itself from the American public and has lost the trust of the American people. And that is the existential moment we face. If we do not regain the trust of the people that we serve, if we do not stop telling people what they should think and start listening to what people want us to do, then we have lost our ability to be able to call ourselves higher education institutions. And by the way, a number of institutions shouldn't call themselves universities or colleges because of the fact that they really don't practice free speech, they don't practice open ideas, they don't welcome diverse views, a variety of other things. I mean, the universities are places in which all ideas should be welcome and all people should be able to say what they want to, no matter what. And the minute we get into this business of censoring, those are no longer universities. Those are institutions that have engaged in political activity in many ways.
Mm. So what gives you hope in the future of the American university then?
Because I think that I see it every day. I see it in the young people that we have on our campus. I see it in our faculty and staff. I see so many people wanting to do great things. I see it almost every day. I think this. I think that higher education is the hope of the nation, and I think that I think that we are the fundamental building block for a democracy, and so I also believe that there are increasingly people who are willing to make the kinds of choices that are necessary in order to make certain that higher education maintains a steady course, a positive course, a middle course. And as with everything, pendulums swing. They swing this way, they swing that way. I have a sense that there is a swing to the center right now. And that to me is very hopeful. But in the end, it's the people that you serve, and every day I see hope.
Mm. So I want to ask you about university governance and what role you see governance playing in the university of the future.
Yeah. Well, I think that there are two aspects to governance. One is, of course, your own board of governors and the governance structure that is there. and making certain the people who have ultimate responsibility, your board of governors, that they govern and not manage. I think that that's important. I think that there is a tendency, particularly in today's very angry world, for people to get into micro conversations, which I find to be not necessarily positive. Needless to say, I think that the second issue, of course, is this whole thing called shared governance. And I believe that shared governance has been lost in many ways. I think that there is this kind of tension that always occurs. But I believe that in order for shared governance to work in the university, there needs to be another component of it, which is called shared responsibility. We talk about shared governance, but not about shared responsibility. We talk about academic freedom, but not about academic responsibility. We've got to have both sides of those conversations. It's well and good for the university administration to have to make some of these challenging choices, but it is equally important for faculty to support those choices when they know that it may impact them directly or whatever. Because in the end, we all have to understand that we work for one entity, which is for the university, and not for individual programs or departments or activities. And I think that we've become very self-centered very fast. I think that, to me, the entitlement mentality in higher education is breathless. We just need to now become part of a community in which we're supporting each other. If we did that, many of the problems that we have would disappear. If we actually liked each other, if we actually talked to each other, if we actually didn't yell at each other, if we actually were not divided in so many different ways, then many of the issues that we have to confront would not be there, because the fact that we would have solved them simply by being positive, constructive human beings.
So what advice then would you give to the next generation of leaders? If I invited you into my class at Bay Path, which is full of emerging leaders, people that are eager to go out and make an impact, what would you tell them about how best to prepare for the world of the future?
That's a great question. I'll just talk off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah.
One, first of all, I've always believed in being who you are, not who other people want to define you as. I think that every leader has strengths, has weaknesses. Play to those strengths. Make certain you do the things that make you feel comfortable. I love to wear bow ties. I've had people tell me, "Well, you look like Orville Redenbacher," and I say, "Hey, look, I love to wear a bow tie, so why change?" I think that that's number one. I think be who you are. I think the second thing is the fact that you need to understand that this is no longer a sinecure. Higher education is going to require leaders to make decisions. And if you're not willing to make the decisions, then really don't get into it. If you're not willing to take criticism, then don't get into the business. If you're not willing to have be shunned and to be to have votes of no confidence and all these other things, then just don't get into the business, because of the fact that it's guerrilla theater out there. And as we go through this process of change, the problem is the fact that we know we need to change, but the pain of change is something that people don't want to go through. The third thing is the fact that I think university presidents need to. I say this. Let me step back one step, and I say, and I believe this. I think that so many university presidents are appointed because they've offended the fewest people the longest period of time. So they really don't. They really want to keep things quiet and happy as they possibly can, and therefore not make any of the kind of decisions that need to be made. And many of them are thinking about, I'll serve my 4 or 5 years, then move on to another institution, whatever. I think that those kind of leaders are going to not only not be successful, but not really be lasting members of the university family in many ways.
That makes it sound like we need a different kind of process for surfacing
We do.
leaders.
We do. I think that I'm a strong believer. I've never interviewed for a job. I mean, every job I've been given, I've been appointed to directly.
Mm.
They've searched me out and they've asked me to join it. And I can honestly say this, given my outspokenness and kind of the controversial way that I view the world, if I had to go through these search processes, I wouldn't go through one. I don't believe in. I really do not believe in beauty contests. I think that you need to appoint a search and screening committee that is very credible, and then let them make those kind of choices. But I think that bringing people onto campus and having them go through a gauntlet is the surefire way to not get good leadership. And the reason I say that is, first of all, the really good people will not go through it. Secondly of all, the people who go through it are those who are desperate to get out of the jobs that they're in.
Mm.
You want to, when you're hunting for leaders, you want to get people who are really happy where they are and they don't want your job. And the only way that they'll take your job is if you give them a compelling reason to do so. And so I think that the whole search and screening process is very broken when we go through these open conversations. I do think that you need to appoint leaders who have a strong belief and understanding in academic life. They don't necessarily need to all come from academia. The old notion that you were a professor and then a chair and then a provost and then a president. I think that pathway is increasingly limited. I think that we need to have people with a lot of different kinds of experiences that come into higher education. We need to think about ourselves as sort of a weaving. You have different people with different strengths, but together we make a stronger community, and our stronger community of presidents also. So I think that right now, I think our search processes are broken. I think that we see a lot of strain in that regard. I think that there's a lot of different perceptions about who can be a university president, what makes a good president. I think we need to resolve some of those issues, and those need to be resolved by board of governors and good people with the belief that the institution is more important than having everyone chime in on everything.
Mm. So how do you hope people will remember your impact and legacy?
Oh gosh, I mean, what a question. I know that I have done good things. I know I've done some things that have been ill-conceived. I always hope that my goal is to leave the university better than I found it. And I think that I can honestly say that every institution I've served has grown and been a better institution because I've been there. And I feel good about that. I think that hopefully some of the things that I've done most recently in terms of higher education, that I started a cascading or a catalyst for people realizing that change is an imperative, and that we've got to have people who believe in change and got to make those kind of changes. Otherwise, the existential challenge I talked about is going to become a reality.
Mm. So we have a signature question here. We're at the end of our time.
Okay.
And we asked this.
I can't believe we're at the end of our time.
I know. This has been a great conversation. I'm still thinking about the antelope in the phone booth.
Yeah.
That is quite an image. So, but we ask everybody who comes on the podcast this question. So I'm very much looking forward to your response. If you could leave one transformative idea or piece of advice that would shape the future of higher education, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think that what I would, well, gosh, I talked about it a little bit, but I think that I think that the way that we reward and recognize and value people within universities is very important, and I think that we don't do that. I think that, frankly, what we do right now, I'll just give you an example. We hire a young person at West Virginia University in philosophy, and he or she comes here because they want to have access to also engineering and medicine. They want to have relationships with physicians and with biomedical engineers and so forth, because they want to have a more horizontal relationship. And so they start developing those. Then some old white guy who's 65 years of age uh, gets them in a room and says, it's all well and good. You're doing all this kind of creative stuff, but unless you do it my way, you're not going to get tenure. The whole process of beating creativity out of our young people. I think universities ought to be run by young people, and I have a right to say that. I'm 80 years of age. I think that we need to really develop multiple roads to salvation. I think we ought to reward people for good teaching. I think we ought to reward people for discovering the cure for cancer or writing a great American novel, but not everyone should be treated as McDonald's hamburgers. And so developing, I think developing a very positive way for us to find the best talented people and rewarding them individually for their talent. And I do believe in a merit system. I believe that merit. I think universities are meritocracies, and the minute that we lose our willingness to say that we're going to put the best people in the best role, no matter their background, no matter their ethnicity or any other thing, I think that we lose our ability to be able to be as competitive as we should be.
Indeed, that is a terrific, those are terrific words to end on. I do need to ask you, you said you're done in a year and a half. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Only the good Lord knows. I mean, I'm not certain. I'm a finisher. I'm a finisher. I'll finish right to the end, and then I'll worry about next stuff.
Okay.
But
All right.
I'm at that point in my life that I don't worry. I mean, I can tell you this: another university presidency is not in my future.
Well, I was gonna ask, but
No, I can assure you that I've run the race, and I'm at the finish line in that regard. But it's been a great race, and it's been a great opportunity, and I cherish every day that I do this. And even my worst days are the best days that most people have.
Yeah. Well, President Gee, I'm so glad for this
Well,
conversation.
I'm honored to meet you. I'm so glad that we had a chance to do this, and I am pleased that you're doing this. How many people do you have listen to your podcast? Do you
Oh,
know?
we're well into 22,000
Oh,
around
wow.
the world.
Wow,
So,
wow. That's a good for you. I mean, you've developed a real following then, haven't you?
and well, I think the stories resonate with
Mhm.
people, particularly during the pandemic.
Yeah.
There was such a hunger to be connected, and then it just grew. And there's actually a book coming out this summer, where I'm going to be telling a lot of the stories and of the leaders and some of
Good,
the insights. So,
good. Well, I'm going to become a follower now. How does that sound?
oh, I would be honored to have you as an ingenious
I'm
you
not.
follower.
Yeah, well,
So.
I'm going. Yeah, I need to figure out how to be ingenious. So I'm going to start
Well,
calling.
I think I'm going to take lessons from you in
Yeah.
that
Everyone
regards.
have a great. Now, where are you located, by the way?
Well,
Where is Bay?
I'm in Hartford, Connecticut, but Bay Path is in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, which is Western Massachusetts.
That's what
So
I thought. I was at Brown,
yeah, yeah,
but we had a home in Westport, Massachusetts, because
sure.
right on the border there, Little Compton,
Oh,
Rhode Island,
yes.
Westport, Massachusetts, and so. But I've never been. I've never been. How big is Bay Path, by the way?
Well, we are, let's see, a little under 3,000, but we have just announced that we are acquiring Cambridge College.
Okay.
So to your point about change, this is a pretty bold move for Bay Path to take, but it will increase the student population, almost double it. And it's going to be an very interesting transition as this all comes together.
Yeah, I'm certain it will be, as a matter of fact. And you're not provost, so you don't have to manage it,
I don't
right?
have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I can
That,
I can
that,
support it from the side and use it as a case study for my students. It's a wonderful thing for them to.
well, do me one favor. Let's keep in touch with each other. And
Yes. Oh,
I want to grow our friendship. I would really appreciate that.
thank
Okay.
you. I would be honored. So
Great.
all best wishes to you in the
Thank
months
you.
ahead.
Thank you. Have a great day. Okay.
Thank you. Uh-huh. Bye-bye.